All right, so let's see. I think we want to. So we have in the past highlighted some of the special skills that our associates have had. It's kind of a these town halls are a great way to share some of those special skills we had earlier. Susanna Ethier actually teach us, kind of gave us a master class on how to do custom cards, greeting cards, which is a thing of the past for many, but it's actually always nice to receive a card in the mail. We're going to actually have Al Ungar take us through a series of short classes on photography. And so Al shared with us at headquarters his portfolio was just, we were all blown away by it. So Jacques, if you can make Al a host, and let's do this. This will be fun and exciting.
Absolutely, it should be good to go.
Okay, let me switch to the other screen here for a second. Okay, so get this thing out of the way. Okay, can you all see the screen?
No, you need to share your screen. If you,
yeah. Okay, let me go back.
Make sure you share the screen where you have the content.
Okay, share screen number 2. Share.
There we go.
There we go. And let's go to slideshow. Slideshow. First one. Now you got it?
We do. Perfect.
Okay, as a slideshow, not this other one, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, as Jay mentioned, that we're going to have like 4 sessions. The first one today is going to be, I call it Tidbits. Second one is going to be on composition rules. Third one about camera equipment, and the last one is photography is an art. So the Tidbits one, okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about the camera manual and why you should have it. The key settings that everybody should know: f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO. Different camera modes, and putting it all together. Some image examples. All the image examples I give you are all my work. Okay, that's done. Now, I've taken this probably from the lower end, figuring you guys know, new photographers, not experienced ones. So you experienced ones will have to bear with us here. Okay, so why do you need a manual? The answer is to know about the camera's features and how to set them. I've given a lot of classes on photography, and you ask the person about how did they do whatever, and they say they don't know, and I ask them to have a manual, and they go, yeah, but I never read it. Okay, that doesn't work well. You have to know what it is. So the answer is you have to be able to set, oops, not too far, didn't I? Back here. Oops. I'm going crazy here.
Back
there. That's not okay. Anyways, so the answer is so that you know how to set the 4 key things for taking good shots: f-stop, which is your aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and white balance. Should you always have it with you? Yes. You should have it either in your camera bag or a soft copy on your phone. Okay. All right. So what is aperture? Aperture is the opening of the lens to capture light. Okay. The one on the left, which is a small number, 2.8, okay, it opens the lens the most, okay? So you get the most light out of a small number and the least light out of a big number, which kind of seems a little backwards, but that's the way it works. So on an f2.8, you can see you get the aperture open wide, but you're really going to have a small depth of field, and at f16, you're going to have a larger depth of field. This next one kind of shows you the example of it. So on the first one, the drawing on the left, that's at an f2.8. You can see just the little toy's head is in focus, and as compared to the smaller aperture at f16, the entire little thing is in focus. Okay, then next one. I know I'm going fast, but I got a lot of slides. Shutter speed. Shutter speed is really the length of time that the shutter is open for exposing light on the camera sensor. Essentially, it's how long your camera spends taking a photo. A fast shutter speed is going to freeze the subject or freeze action. Slow shutter speed will blur the subject or give you blurry action, which is, I'll show you an example of that later. Okay, one of my pictures. ISO, it stands for International Organization for Standardization. I've never heard it called that. I always heard it called ISO. Anyways, it's one of the three key things along with shutter speed and aperture. As you increase ISO number, images will grow progressively brighter. ISO can help you capture images in dark environments, so it will be more flexible about your aperture and shutter speed settings. However, it also gives you higher grain. So if you look at the figure on the left, you can see how as the ISO got bigger, the light got bigger, but on the left or on the right, and you see that the picture is clear at ISO 200 and very green at ISO 3200. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, perfect exposure. If you look inside the camera, just about every camera has a little drawing like what you see there. Okay, if the guy is right in the middle, which means it's like right there, that says you're on perfect exposure. But the camera believes it's perfect exposure. Okay, oops, I did that again, didn't I? Okay, so we gotta leave the mouse alone. Anyways, if you want to, so sometimes you always want a perfect exposure, but sometimes you want to overexpose. You get a little light, you get darkness. Say if you're shooting somebody's face and they have the sun behind them, okay, so you may up the exposure a little bit to get more light in, to get their face more bright, or you may want to go to the other side, which would be to get something more on the order of getting better light, more dense pictures. Okay, so camera modes. Now these camera modes is something that you'll find in probably every point and shoot. As far as DSLRs, the lower end DSLRs will have them. The high end professional ones will not have them. But be that as may, here's the auto mode. The auto mode basically sets everything for you. As we call it, it's the awful mode. Okay, because what happens is the camera does all the thinking for you. Okay, and it tries to take the best shot, but it may not be the kind of shot you really want to. Okay, portrait mode, it'll look at the person or the object that's closest to the camera and put the rest of it. So it's going to choose a large aperture so that the background is blurry. Okay, over here. Macro mode, that's a close-up with a point shoot camera. You'll never be able to get the full item that you want to shoot, okay? Because it cannot focus that closely. You have to get a macro lens, on a DSLR to get the full item into the frame. Landscape mode, which is the one most people are going to use, the camera sets a small aperture, which like around f/16, f/22 or whatever, so it gets the most depth of field possible. When you do focus it, it'll focus from foreground, dark, distant background. The focus point is 1/3 in front and 2/3 in back. So if you focus, if I don't screw this up, if you focus right there, 1/3 in front and 2/3 in back is what you're going to get. So if you want a good landscape picture, don't focus on the nearest object. Focus a third of the way back. Okay. Works best for some bright light. If you have low light, you need to use a tripod. Okay. And for a DSLR, you want to use a wide angle lens like an f/22. Like a 2.8 or 4.0, something like that. And if you use a flash on it, it's only going to upload the flash for the near term. One of the things that always kind of cracks me up is if you go to a sporting event, you see all these people taking the flash shots and they're flashing all over the stadium. So basically the only thing the flash gets is probably the person sitting in front of them. They'll never get it to the field. Sports modes. This is one with a fast shutter speed, at least 1/500 to 1/1000 to freeze the subject. Works best for some bright light. If you use a flash, you have to reduce the shutter speed to at least 250 to sync with the flash. But the flash will help freeze the subject as well. You also want to use what they call the continuous shooting mode so that you can take multiple shots. And I'll give you an example of that too a little bit few minutes. Night portrait mode, that is where the flash will pop up for you if you have a pop-up flash, and so that you can get a foreground and background lit as possible. Now the pop-up flash, let me just talk to that for a second. If you have an on-camera flash or a pop-up flash and you want to shoot a person, you're going to get their face very flat and blown out. You really want to use an off-camera flash, you know, and you can get a bracket and hold it off to the right or left so that you get a flash coming in on an angle and doesn't mess up their face as much. The advanced camera modes, they will have this on some point shoots, but you will have it definitely on all DSLRs. You got the manual mode, which is what all professional photographers will use manual mode. I use manual mode for everything except for one case, which is shooting sports, okay? Aperture priority allows you to set the aperture value, and the camera will automatically picks the shutter speed. So it would pick whatever you want, and then you get a counter shutter speed. A aperture or shutter speed is not just the opposite. You pick the shutter speed, and the camera will pick the aperture. When I said I use it for sports, that's what I will do. I'll set my shutter speed at 1/500, 1/2000, or whatever I set to, and whatever the aperture is, it will be. P for program, which also stands for pathetic. It's just like the auto mode, but you get a chance to set it to override some of the settings. Advantages, disadvantages. The advantages of all these camera modes is you select them and you can quickly get the shot, especially if you don't know how to set your camera or what it should be. The disadvantages is if the camera's going to pick its best, what it thinks the best, but it may not be your best picture. Okay. All right. So some of my shots. Okay. This was taken at a tournament. The tee shot here. You can see the baseball is just barely going into the net. This one's been published about half a dozen times. I used burst mode on this. Basically, as the pitcher was just released the ball, I started with my shutter, popping my shutter, sound like a little machine gun going. Because on my camera, I get 14 frames a second. So I used a fast shutter speed, 1/8000. Okay. My f-stop picked at 2.8. Since I was focused on infinity, the 2.8 doesn't matter, even though that's a small aperture. The ISO setting was at 400, so that I was able to get whatever I get. If you look at my profile picture that I put up today, you can see the lens I shot it with in that picture. Okay. This one is basically a landscape picture. F-stop was good. As ISO for the quality, shutter speed was too low for what I wanted to do, so I had to use it, mount it on a tripod. A 6 second or 0.6 second shutter speed, you can't do. Whatever, your shutter speed should always be 1 over your focal length is your shutter speed. So if you're using a 200 millimeter lens, you should have your shutter speed at least at 1/200. The ISO at 100 gives a little noise, but you can see I got everything in focus from the grass in the front all the way to the trees in the back. This was lightning. Drew this one in. You can see it's a shutter speed of 15 seconds. What that really meant was I had the aperture, the lens open for 15 seconds. I had to get covered on the lens. As soon as I saw the strike, I pulled the cover back, got the strike and recovered it, and then stopped the camera. So that's how I was able to capture the lightning. This is one I was talking about before. This was at a polo match up in Santa Barbara, and I think I'll pan the camera with the rider. So I used a slow shutter speed at 1/20th. Okay, at f-stop at 18, ISO at 50, so that I could get that slow shutter speed. You can see the rider is almost in focus. However, the mallet and the ball and the horse's legs are all blurry, which gives you, and of course the background's all blurry, which gives you the sense of speed or movement. Okay, this is one I took up in Yosemite. Whenever you're shooting waterfalls, For streams, you always want to have a slow shutter speed, which will make the water very silky looking. Okay, that's what I did here. So I had a slow shutter speed of 3.2 seconds. It was mounted on a tripod. I had a low ISO of 50, so I can get that slow speed, and I had f-stop of f10, so I could get the entire river into focus. Okay, what am I doing on time? Okay. This is, if you're ever shooting pictures of people, you must get their pictures of people or animals. You must get their eye in focus. You can see with the young lady, her eye is perfectly focused. Her eyes are actually feel like they're piercing into you, I think. Okay. Since I shot this and I had a portable studio set up in my garage, and so since I used this in studio, I had studio lights with it. I had to shoot it 1/125 to sync with the studio lights. F-stop with F5 gave me just enough depth of field to get her eyes in focus and most of her body with the ISO 200. This is one I took out at a couple of the fires that were in Southern California. This is the firemen, talking to each other. So I had to hand hold this one. At 1/60 was good enough. I popped it all the way down to f2.8, which would get them in enough focus, and the ISO set at 2500. So it had a lot of grain in it, which I got rid of the grain in Lightroom. Okay. We're going to talk about Lightroom and Photoshop in one of the upcoming sessions. This is a mountain bike picture of my brother-in-law's my son-in-law's brother, when him and I were mountain biking. As you can see, the water is completely sharp in this case because I used a pretty good f-stop of shutter speed, of 1/800, f-stop of f29. That's a big f, so that I would have the water completely in focus from front to end, and the ISO was set up at 640 so that I could accomplish that. This picture won first place in Ventura County Fair. Just okay. These are just some backup slides. I'll just show you real quick. This one, it just shows you all the differences. This is one is a little bit about the process, how to put your camera together. And that's it.
Great. Hey, thank you, Al. I think it'd be nice if we can share the slide deck. So I think, Melissa, if you can work with Al to.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I will do that. And then, if you have any questions, send me an email or, give me a phone call, whichever. Okay.
Great.
It will work.
Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thanks, Al. That was wonderful. So we've got a series of short sessions of Al coming up forward in the next town halls. Think of questions you might have in terms of how you might improve your photos or other aspects. All right.
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. If you see my picture up there, okay, you can see the lens I used to catch that baseball one. I was sitting on the inside of the field. Okay, I got hit 4 times. The last time I got hit was actually just after I took that picture was the next one. There was a ball, I rented that lens. That's a $13,000 lens. Okay, and the ball was coming right dead at me. Okay, and I turned it and it actually hit the side of the lens right here. And the question that came up before, well, did you shoot the ball? No, I just turned the camera. Okay, didn't want the ball to hit the lens. So.
All right.
Okay.
Who didn't say that photography wasn't a hazard?
Right. Right.
Okay.
Risky.
Yes. Hey, thanks, Al. Much appreciated.